What is what is, what is up YouTube? Today I'm gonna cover how to make samples like Bryson and Tory Lanze, especially for albums like Trap Soul and Chicks Tape. Let's dive straight in. First things first, the main thing I have going on is the piano chords, which is just ambient in the background, supported by the vocals, which is this originally. So after that, I just flipped it, Alt Y, and then I right clicked, consolidate it, and time selection. And then what I did afterwards, I reversed it. So it gives it a swell sound like this. So the next thing I added was actually just a little top end for that piano melody. And that is just the same process. I played the melody, flipped it, and then I exported it out. After that, I just reversed it, and then altogether it should sound like this. So yeah, it's more for texture, and this is just dry right now. And the vocal chops. The vocal chops were recorded using Contact. So what I usually do when I record through Contact is I send it through to a mixer channel, which is this one, and then I arm it, and then I play the notes while it's recording, and then I make sure that it's only recording the audio as opposed to notes also. So I just press play and then play it out on the keyboard. After I finish playing, and then after I'm satisfied with everything, I chop it up and then rearrange. So after that, I normalize most of the melodies, then gaining back or reducing the volume within the sampler, and then sending that to the mixer channel. So that being said, I sent all of these stems to their own mixer channel and added processing there. For the pianos, I just added a reverb, and these are the effects, just a bigger sides and a little bit more of a low cut. And then I turned this stereo separator all the way to the left, so it's really spacious. And then after that, I did the same thing for the reverse top melody. Same processing, just a little bit more of a decay on this one. But other than that, it's basically the same. So the only thing that's pretty different between all of them is the EQ. So for EQing purposes, I usually have everything playing at once. So I'm not soloing it, which a lot of producers make the mistake of doing, because what you might hear is good soloed might not translate well in the total mix. So I highly recommend not soloing all the time. But there are points where soloing do come in handy, especially for vocals. But anyways, to the point, low end is cut, the high end is also cut to bring it more in the low mids. And then for the other, it's basically the same thing, but a little bit more high end as opposed to the low end being present. And I did account for a little bit more frequency compression for these the top end, just because it was, especially when you're reversing, it has a harsh attack, so it's just gonna peak out at you. So to account for those frequencies, I kind of just compress them whenever it goes up, gets deducted. So those are basically the processing for the pianos. And then the pianos are sent to this mix bus, which is just basically a little bit more compression from the CLA. And that is just full reset. And then I adjust for it using the knobs, and then just here for the compression. And all of these compression techniques I use is it's not a lot of compression, it's more like a dB or two. just to make sure that everything is consistent, but also making sure that everything is present. So it's not always necessary to squash your samples because you do want your samples to be dynamic. So that's basically the pianos. Let's dive into the vocals. So the vocals are just a lot of EQing, and a lot of the EQing is either boosting or cutting. And a lot of my compression for vocals consists of frequency compression, just because there are some frequencies that you don't want like all the time, but there are also frequencies that you need at some points and not at other points. So that's why frequency compression is really useful. So you have a threshold, and whenever it passes that threshold, it will get deducted, or it'll like reduce in volume. So for the other vocal, it's basically same treatment. The higher the vocals with the higher end more present, I wanted to make sure that is clear, and none of the low end is really clashing with the ones that needed the low end. It's more of a control thing. And then same with this EQ, just a little bit more presence in the high end and a little less on the low end. And same with this, just a little bit more control and getting rid of the frequencies that I don't need, and then exaggerating, or not really exaggerating, but adding flavor as opposed to just sitting there. After all the EQing, it is then sent to a bus which has reverb, and there's a little bit more decay on this, but I didn't want to add too much because I'll show you later I do have a really large reverb that is being sidechained. And other than that, the only other thing I did was cut out the low end, not too much, and then just reduce the size and the diffusion, so the reflections, I guess. So the send basically consists of a supermassive. It's just this preset with the 100% mix, so you're only getting the wet signal. So after that, the signal is being sent to the fruity limiter, which is actually just doing just getting sidechained. No limiting is happening, and then it just has a little bit of attack and a release. So essentially it's just the reverb is going to be playing whenever the vocal is not being played. And with that, the vocal at the end of the signal is just being separated into stereo only. None of the mid section is going to be going out. So then after that, the signal is just being sent straight into the master as opposed to like the premix. I don't want any effects being added to the reverb already, so it's just going to go straight to the master. But all of these buses are being sent to the premix, where I can treat everything equally. So for the premix, I basically just have an RC20 with a little bit of distortion in the higher targeted towards the higher frequencies. So after the RC20, it's just the signal is being sent to the Pro L2, and I'm just giving it a little bit more gain. And after that, it's just being sent to the master. So everything together should sound like this. So that's about it for the sample, and for the end, I'm just gonna show you where and how I would take what approach I would take in flipping these samples. So I would first basically export each of these stems out. You can just go to tools and then go to export all playlist tracks. So anything that's not muted is going to be exported out to a specific folder. After that, I would just go to a new project. So within this new file is where I would make the beat and then export everything out. But yeah, essentially I just have an intro, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, and then outro. I'll just play it out, and maybe later Maybe in another video I can explain how I mixed everything and mastered the song, but here it is.